AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. You are listening to high definition radio, more content per cubic inch of air than any other place on your radio dial. And I want you to be proud of Christianity. I want you to be proud of your religious tradition because it has had the greatest impact for good in the history of the world. There's no other agency, no other movement, no other dynamic that has done more for the good of nations around the globe than Christianity. Be proud of the fact that you are a follower of Christ. Be proud of the fact that the religious tradition that Jesus Christ started has done more to ensure the health of nations than any other dynamic in the history of civilization. 888-589-8840, number to call, 888-589-8840, number to call. And we'll take calls here in just a second. I want to just finish up on this piece about the Woodbury, the sociologist from University of North Carolina. Remember, he went into Togo. He was in the country of Togo, goes into the University of Togo library. They got no books. It's in some kind of dusty building. Well, where do you buy your books? Well, we don't. We just sit down and the professor lectures to us. So then he goes down the road, crosses the border into Ghana, goes into the University of Ghana's bookstore. They got books lining from floor to ceiling, including some written by local scholars. Why the contrast? And here he says that here's the difference. The reason was clear. During the colonial era, British missionaries in Ghana had established a whole system of schools and printing presses, but France, the colonial power in Togo, severely restricted missionaries. The French authorities took interest in educating only a small intellectual elite. More than 100 years later, education was still limited in Togo. In Ghana, it was flourishing. You know why? Because in Protestantism, we believe in the priesthood of all believers, not just for the elites. Now, he went to the Congo. While he was in the Congo, it says, he made one of his most dramatic early discoveries. Congo's colonial era exploitation was well known. Colonists in both French and Belgian Congo had forced villagers to extract rubber from the jungle. As punishment for not complying, they burned down villages, castrated men, cut off children's limbs. In French Congo, the atrocities passed without comment or protest, aside from one report in a Marxist newspaper in France. But in Belgian Congo, the abuses aroused the largest international protest movement since the abolition of slavery. So the question is why? Same atrocities done by colonial powers, same atrocities in French Congo and also in the Belgian Congo. But in French Congo, nobody pays any attention to it. Belgian Congo, international alarm, international protest. Why? Working on a hunch, Woodbury charted mission stations all across the Congo. Protestant missionaries, it turned out, were allowed only in the Belgian Congo. They couldn't go into French Congo. Among those missionaries were two British Baptists named John and Alice Harris, who took photographs of the atrocities, smuggled the photographs out of the country, traveled to the United States and Britain to stir up public pressure and outcry against the abuses. So he does more work. He compiles all of these statistics. He's looking at atlases, mission statements. He developed a statistical model to measure the connection between Protestant mission work and democracy and freedom. And then he got ready for the day when he was going to push a button on the computer and get the results of all of the data that he'd entered into this program. He says, what if I run this analysis and I find nothing? And this was a dissertation. How am I going to salvage my dissertation? I get all the statistics, I plug it into the computer, I develop this model. What if I hit the enter button and it comes out there's no connection, there's nothing here, it's zip. And I've got years invested in this, 5 years invested. I got no dissertation. I'm sunk. My career is ended. One morning, in a windowless, dusty computer lab lit by fluorescent bulbs, Woodbury ran the first big test. After he finished prepping the statistical program on his computer, he clicked enter and then leaned forward to read the results. I was shocked, said Woodbury. It was like an atomic bomb. The impact of missions on global democracy. Notice he's talking about its political impact. Not its spiritual impact, which is obviously also huge. The impact of missions on global democracy was absolutely huge. Woodbury already had historical proof that missionaries had educated women and the poor, promoted widespread printing, led nationalist movements that empowered ordinary citizens, and fueled other key elements of democracy. Now the statistics were backing it up. Missionaries weren't just part of the picture, they were central to it. So then the rest of the article goes on to talk about how he tested it against alternate theories to rule out correlation, to make sure there was a root of causation here. And here's Daniel Philpott, who teaches political science and peace studies at the University of Notre Dame, which is a Catholic school, you'll note. And he said this: for Woodbury to show through devastatingly thorough analysis that conversionary Protestants, and remember, Protestant missionaries that were sent out under the sponsorship of a state government and funded with government money, they didn't make an impact. It was the Protestant conversionary missionaries who were sent out, supported by the free will donations of American believers or Western believers, European believers, that made the difference. The analysis of conversionary Protestants are crucial to what makes the country democratic today is remarkable in many ways. Not only is it another factor, it turns out to be the most important factor. So, Jesus said that we are to be salt and light, and here is proof that, in particular, the Protestant faith has been salt and light not only in America, but also around the world. Pretty good stuff, and I hope you are as encouraged by that as I am. Be proud of your tradition, because it has done more for the good of humanity than any other dynamic energy in the world. Well, let's grab some phone calls, 888-589-8840. Let's begin with Rick in Columbus, Ohio. Rick, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Oh, thanks for having me on the show, Brian. And I'm always encouraged by your prayers every day at the beginning.
Great, thank you.
I wanted to just mention the correlation you just were talking about Protestantism and, basically freedom and democracy. It kind of makes sense why the socialists and Marxists in this country who are running the country want to shut down all religious, speech or any truth, because that's like Nazi Germany. Once you turn the tide in the churches, the Germans could do whatever they wanted, and the Nazism veiled now is because we have no education of the past. And I have a coworker who's from her parents are from the Eastern Bloc. They're from Latvia in the Baltic area, and they left the country to have freedom, and the menace followed them, to America, and it just, the correlations between these things, we do as Christians need to connect the dots and speak up about this to people who don't know, and I just wanted to highlight that correlation, that I think if the powers who are running, the administration right now can silence the truth more and more, then they're going to have their way like Nazi Germany did.
That's a very profound observation. So in essence, what I think Rick is saying is, whether they're aware of it or not, Protestant Christianity in particular, and Roman Catholicism on the abortion issue, on the sanctity of life issue, the Roman Catholic Church has been the leading voice in our culture on the sanctity of human life. Protestants have lagged behind the Catholic Church on sounding a strong message for the protection of human life. But the reason that they want to repress the church is because we are a voice of the people. We're a voice for democracy. We're a voice for representative government. We're a voice for a Republican form of government. What they want is totalitarian top-down control. We threaten that in them. That's why they want to shut us down. They want to silence our voice, because we are a threat to entrenched political power. And one of the observations that Woodbury made is, you had these churches, whether they're Catholic missionaries or whether they were Protestant missionaries who were supported by the governments they represented, they would support colonialism, because those are the guys that are paying the bills. But the Protestant missionaries were often critical of colonial oppression, drew attention to the abuses, and that led to liberty. Many of the leaders of the movements of independence that formed these nations, independent nations, many of them, in fact, most of them for a time, almost all of them, were educated in Protestant schools. All right, thanks, Rick. I appreciate the call. Let's go to Lynn. Lynn, welcome. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to let you know there was more going on in Washington, D.C. this week than the March for Life, which is very important. The Republican National Committee is also meeting.
Yes.
And I just want you to know that the committee man from Michigan has pretty much been barred from that meeting because of his stand and some posts that he put out on his Facebook about homosexuality.
Really? Now, what
And-
did he say about homosexuality?
Well, he was trying to show that the lifestyle is dangerous, and if you know someone in the lifestyle, you should help them get
Wow.
out of it because of the diseases, the suicides, and all of these things that go into it, plus the depression, and he tried to show that through these articles. He has taken flack since he was elected in May of 2012. There's a contingent within the Republican Party that wants to pull it left. And
Yeah.
so they know he's-
Especially on that issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
But especially him because he was a state representative for 6 years. He served all of his terms and was term limited.
And Lynn, what is his
Very,
name? What is his
very
name?
go- Oh,
That's not important. Maybe we can track it down. It'd be interesting to have him on the program. But, it's interesting, Lynn, because this is going to be the litmus test for the Republican Party. Because, Reince Priebus actually postponed the start of that meeting. We talked about this. We celebrated it. We commended him for it. Postponed the start of the RNC National Annual Meeting so he could be at the March for Life. First
Well,
time
he's
a
the
representative
one
of one of the major
calling for-
political parties had been there, but on the issue of the homosexual agenda, you can't find him.
he is calling for this man's resignation.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what we're running into. Well, Lynn, I appreciate the call very much. It's interesting to highlight that. We'll try to track that down a little bit. I'd like to have that guy on the program because I think the Republican Party, they're heading for the tall grass. They have surrendered. They've capitulated on the issue of same-sex marriage, on the homosexual agenda. They have become cowards. They are shrinking back from declaring the truth about homosexual behavior. And now if you speak the truth, even the Republicans now are demonizing you, marginalizing you, silencing you, telling you to go down, sit in the corner, and shut up. Focal Point AFR Talk, back after the news.